needs to go
We're
back
ready.
to screen back.
I'm gonna send it to you at your work email. So you go to my.
Okay. Here. Oh, are we ready? Hello? Honey, there's no voice. Hello?
Hi. Are you?
Hi.
Hi. We can hear you.
Hi, I'm ready.
We can hear you. I think Susanna is saying, okay, we're up. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. If you can all hear me, first of all, hello, everybody. And thank you to the library and to the senior program for doing these. I had the pleasure of hearing from a friend who lives in Sarasota, Florida a few days ago, who is a follower of the library, and she now listens in. I don't know whether she's there, Barbara Loveridge, but it's so great how far and wide this program is being received. So thank you guys for putting it together and for helping some of us with our computer skills. I'm going to do some recipes that have been in the news. It seems like every time I pick up my phone, I get a lot of recipes, and they're all called these one-pan wonders. And I'm thinking, what's so wonderful about a one-pan wonder? I mean, I've been doing that all the time just to avoid washing dishes or washing pots and pans at the end of the meal. How many of you have baked the whole dinner in one pan? Am I hearing? Are you hearing? You have, yeah.
I have,
Okay,
yes.
so you are hearing. I think the key is you can do any meal, and it's so much better when you do, particularly with a heavy emphasis on the vegetables. Any type of meat, beans, fish. So what I've taken up here on my counter is I'm going to pick up the phone and hopefully the screen just to show you one of the recipes. And by the way, all of these recipes, if you have an iPhone or a computer, you just go to your search engine, you just put one pan dinners, and up will come everything from a breakfast event, a cheese, we're going to do a feta cheese and vegetable here today. We're also going to do a chicken and vegetables, but you can do anything. But the key is, I think, is having a pan, first of all, that's large enough. You can use the smaller pan because you think, oh, it's just the two of us having dinner. And actually, I did the experiment today. I have a smaller pan that I cut up all the veggies, but I need to put more in, and this is just for it's too small. It's a half of a sheet pan. So for the most part, you will need the larger pan. Why? Because it gives your vegetables room to spread out in the pan while they're being cooked at a high heat. And at that high heat, they need to sear on all sides of them and not steam. So anyway, let's get started with some of the varieties that I've been reading about, and we'll talk a little about. One this week was sausages and caramelized onions. Well, I thought that's a great idea. So I had a package of very good Italian sausage. It's something I get at Costco. It has very little grease in it while it's baking. And so I'm just giving you ideas as to what you can do for a one pot or a one pan thing. And with sausages, I would pair that with chunky butternut squash, caramelized onions which have been cut up. I always like the color scheme. I like something green, something orange or red in whatever dish I'm making. So probably with that, because the butternut squash, if it's cut up in chunks, and the sausage are a longer cooking meal than the one I'm going to do first here. And so you'll want a green such as broccoli, broccolini, even sauteed cabbage in the pot to do the sausage one. Another possibility is with fish. And this week we had salmon with veggies in a one pot. And I found that the salmon did beautifully with a combination of Brussels sprouts and Tom loves sweet potatoes, so I chopped them up, onion, and seasoning for the salmon. Another fish that I've done in the one tray cooking is, of course, and we'll get into all the vegetables, but it's a whole base of chopped up veggies with an olive oil, lemon juice, whatever you think will complement the meat or the fish or the beans. Put that in the oven, 10 minutes at a high heat, about 400. This week when I did that, I then took them out of the oven, took my salmon. We had 2 pieces of salmon, 2 nice pieces. I mixed the vegetables up, put the salmon on the top with some, maybe some lemon pepper, fresh lemon, put it back in the oven for 10 minutes. And then this comes to the table all ready with our entire dinner. Another possibility, and one we're going to make tonight, is going to be chicken shawarma. Chicken shawarma is a Mideastern dish with a lot of different types of seasonings than you would usually, in addition to the lemon juice and olive oil. And by the way, all of these recipes, you just go to your search engine. If you put in chicken shawarma, you'll get 6 recipes. If you put in sausages with caramelized onions, and then create from there yourself, and it'll come out. So I was saying before about, okay, so shrimp, salmon. Another thing that makes a full meal is actually, I picked up a magazine this week. I was reading it. It was called Eating Well. Some of you may get it because it comes free. I don't know how I get it. It was called the One Pan Wonder. And I thought, what else are they doing in one pan? And they actually did an egg dish, a big batch of eggs in your sheet pan and then they gave you all of the additions, the protein you can add to it, the different types of vegetables, the different types of, they have 8 different kinds of possible cheeses, seasonings. So the bottom line when you're doing a one pan dish, the bottom line really is to create on your own and to know the things, the flavorings and spices that if you were ever going to do the one pan egg wonder or the one pan fish or chickpeas. Chickpeas is a great protein to add to a roasted vegetable plate. It's as much as you can think of. And the big thing is, what do you have in the house for veggies? Now, it's either feast or famine here on Block Island. If it's right after I've gone shopping and I'm thinking I'm not shopping again for 4 weeks, which happened last week, I went crazy buying vegetables. And when I buy my vegetables, almost all of which I use for these one pan suppers, I think of vegetables that will last the longest. And just to give you some idea of what those vegetables are, you know most of them. But if it's, first of all, super fresh, here's a cauliflower, broccoli. These are already 1 week in my refrigerator. And there's not a mark on the cauliflower yet. I will probably cut it up by tomorrow in smaller packages, tightly wrapped with saran wrap. I've learned that trick from Sandra Kelly. And I'm telling you, my vegetables last forever, very tightly wrapped with the kind of clingy saran wrap. In fact, I have an example here. Sandra from her garden gave me some turnips last November that had come out of their garden. 4 or 5, I've used them in some of my one pan vegetable things. These turnips are not your usual Thanksgiving type. These are very sweet and crunchy. I slice these very thin and I've thrown them in my dish, but look at how, that's as fresh as it was last November. Tightly, can you see it? Tightly wrapped, put in the hydrator, and there it sits. So going back to shopping for making a lot of these dinners, take a step aside from the usual lettuce to the salads and the carrots and buy all kinds of vegetables that you can use up in a few weeks, tightly wrap them in small pieces. The dish I'm going to make today, one of them has Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes as part of the base. And those things, you know, are longer lasting. But one day, just before I went on my shopping spree last week, we were at the very end of fresh vegetables. And I thought, I don't want to open up a frozen package of vegetables. I've made it this far. It was another 4 weeks. I said, but I still in my refrigerator, I have celery, I have carrots, I have onions, and I had a stalk of broccoli and a piece of red pepper. Well, that made the most amazing vegetable combination, which I cut them all up. And right now I have all my vegetables cut. It doesn't take long, especially if you have a welcome or a cooperative guest in your house, or your husband or a friend there, just to chop it. It takes a few minutes to have them all chopped and ready to go into the pan. Now, I turned the oven on before to 400 degrees. And when I was thinking of what I was going to make for today, of the many possibilities, sausage, shrimp, salmon, chickpeas, I thought, let's stick with the tried and true chicken. So we're going to be doing a chicken shawarma dish. And that's what Tom and I are going to have for dinner. But there was another dish that intrigued me, and that was a Mideastern vegetable dish with feta cheese in it. So I thought, well, let me use up some of the vegetables that probably have to be used first. And that I had a zucchini, which is something that I feel doesn't keep as well as your like the broccoli and the cauliflower. So I cut up zucchini, and actually there's a recipe right online. You can see in my pan here, I've cut up some zucchini, red peppers, yellow peppers, and I also did some carrots. You know, it's amazing. It looks like a lot, but once you sit down for dinner and you have all these wonderful seasoned vegetables with whatever it is that goes in with them, you do need a lot. This is only 1.5 peppers, a half of a zucchini, 1 carrot. So what I'm going to do is I chop some of these up. I usually start, most recipes tell you to use 1/4 cup of oil. Well, I don't like to use a lot. I'll probably, that's probably 2 tablespoons of oil in my pan. My pan, by the way, is a really heavy duty pan, so it can withstand the high temperatures that roasted vegetables need in the oven. So my hands are clean. I'm going to just smush this around. Then I'm going to take my half a pan of vegetables that are already cut, because this is too crowded, really, to make an appropriate roasted vegetable dish. And you'll see when I put them in my pan here, along with, so that's a zucchini. It's half of a fairly large one, and I wanted to use it up. Oh, and I also found some mushrooms that I haven't used up that I should use up soon, because they will cook up quickly too. So I threw them in, and some sliced carrots. And I think I'm actually going overboard with even this large pan that I have here. They're all in the pan. I'm mixing them and trying to get them all with a bit of the olive oil on them. Now, this is going to be my dish that I'm going to put the whole thing in the oven with no protein just yet. I'm going to half cook it for 10 minutes. And this is going to be tomorrow night's dinner. And tomorrow night, I'm going to take out my block of feta cheese. See the feta? And this recipe is actually online. It's another one. It's called feta with roasted veggies. I'm going to take half of this chunk of feta. I'll take about 4 ounces of it tomorrow, because this particular roasted pan I'm going to put in the oven for 10 minutes while I make another dinner for tonight. So I'm going to roast these veggies that are here in the pan, and it doesn't have to be what I have here. These are the ones I felt I needed to use up, or I will have wasted my money in that big shopping spree for veggies. I mean, I always have a lot on hand, but I know what I have to use up. We all do. Okay, here's the veggie mixture. Can you see how spread out they are? It's not overcrowded. I don't have one thing on top of another. What I think I'm going to put on this is feta itself is salty. And I probably could be using, I'm looking here on my counter, I have some fish sauce, I don't want to use that. But I also have some lemon pepper. It has a touch of salt in it. I think that will nicely season along with some sprinkled basil. Hang on, I'm going to get them. Okay. Where's the basil? Where's the salt?
Can you find it?
Yeah. And you know what else I'm going to put on this dish? Because it is a Mideastern dish. I'm going to take some, I have plenty of black olives. I have a big jar of calamatas. I'm going to throw some olives on it too, just to really re-emphasize the Mideastern quality of that dinner. So they too are salty a bit. So I will just put a touch, a little bit of some lemon pepper, and into the oven this goes. This is tomorrow night's dinner because I'm going to take this out in 10 minutes. And I am going to leave it overnight. And then tomorrow for dinner, I'm going to just take 4 ounces of that feta block. I'm going to crumble it into the veggies, put it back in the oven for 10 minutes. And there's our vegetarian feta and roasted veggie dinner. It could be anything. It's always what I have on hand, generally. But here goes. And then we'll make chicken shawarma. When I roast veggies, I really like to do it at 400. I know sometimes recipes will tell you 425, but maybe my oven is hot. 400 is enough to get it started for 10 minutes so that they get, I might put it up a little bit to 425. All right, the next dish, which again I found came to me online this week. I don't usually use any recipes when I make my one dish, whatever, Wonders called it. It's whatever I have on hand. But we've gotten so used to these because it's easy, it's tasty, it's a wonderful combination, and they're great leftovers for lunch the next day if you don't eat all of them. Or you can scramble eggs and put your leftover roasted veggies in them, or put your roasted veggies in a salad. So the chicken shawarma is a Mediterranean dish, and it just depends on the recipe you get, what they put in it. It does ask for you to marinate some chicken thighs. I didn't have any chicken thighs, but the recipe I used said you could use chicken breasts also. But you have to know, of course, that chicken breasts do not give off the kind of, they're not as fatty as chicken thighs. So, and also they won't take as much cooking. So I have been marinating, where's my chicken? I just did chicken, where are you? Here it is. Again, I did a double recipe. This is about 1.5 pounds of chicken breast. I like to double recipes and then have them for another meal. I'm really a lazy cook. If I could get away with making a meal by using something maybe with a little possible change, maybe serving it with rice at the next meal I can. So anyway, I've marinated the chicken, but in the meantime, I'm going to start first of all with the vegetables that I think go well with chicken shawarma. When you look up a chicken shawarma recipe, they'll probably just tell you onions and not as many veggies as I like to use. But what I've chosen to use are Brussels sprouts. When I cut my Brussels sprouts in half, especially if they're large. If they're little ones in the same bag, I just leave them whole. it's probably my favorite thing to put in my doing a one tray thing. And Brussels sprouts is a vegetable that lasts at least a week or two if you get them nice and fresh. I find in going to the store, if they come in a bag, I look carefully to make sure that the end of them, here are the Brussels sprouts, that the end is not brown, because that means they're old. Brussels sprouts, like cabbage, it's the cabbage family, they last forever in the fridge. This is probably 6 ounces of Brussels sprouts in my dish. And I did 1 sweet potato, but they're big because we like to have a starch with our meal if it's not rice. Sweet potatoes or butternut squash or farro or quinoa is always something. But this I wanted to use the butternut squash with the Brussels sprouts, mainly because it's colorful. And then I always put onions in everything. Now, when I looked up the recipe, they said purple onions. I think purple onions are wonderful, and they are a lot more tasty than regular onions. But I just use regular ones because that's what I had. So in they go. And there's my next vegetable combination. And we're going to talk about combinations. I mean, you're probably sitting there. I want you all to think about, what do you have in your fridge right now? What is it that you were thinking of having for dinner? But if you wanted to do a one pot thing, what do you have in terms of vegetables that you can throw in a pan at a high heat, 10 minutes, and then I'm not gonna, I am. I'm gonna put the chicken right on top of this because chicken breasts cook quickly. And so will these vegetables. I made the same combination of vegetables 2 nights ago with my salmon. And it was took 20 minutes really for the whole dinner. So I'm gonna take my marinating chicken that has all kinds of Mediterranean spices on it. And I think that'll go well with the sweet potatoes and the onions. And you can see it's not too crowded, but I need the whole pan. You couldn't use a smaller one. So I'm going to take that. Here's a Brussels sprout that I didn't cut in half. It's too big to, and you know, when you put Brussels sprouts, of course, into roast, I turn them over so that the cut side is down on the pan. They'll get nice and brown that way. All right, here's the chicken. I didn't cut it up in pieces. I guess I could have. I just left the chicken breast that I cut up whole. And I'm going to just put them right on top of my veggies. Now, there we go. If I wanted to cook the, and I'm going to save some of the, but I'm not going to pour the marinade in the pan. Why? Because then my veggies won't brown and roast. This is just the way it is. Can you see the dinner ready to go in the oven? This is tonight's dinner with roasted veggies. Oops. Here I come. All right, so I have all the veggies here on my counter that you could possibly use. I went around the kitchen and took out, I have an eggplant. That would make a wonderful part of a roasted dinner, particularly with perhaps lamb or what have you. But you can use any vegetable whatsoever. And I'm saving that eggplant to make that eggplant casserole. I think most people are more eating on Block Island. You often can't get as many and as much of a variety. And they're fresh at the BIG, definitely. But so I like to have veggies that will last a long time, that I can cut up and put into a roasted vegetable, one dish wonder, whatever it is. and they're always tasty. So, do you have questions for me?
I have a question.
Is it clear? Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, okay, is it awful, terrible, impossible to use frozen vegetables? Shame on me, I know, but
Well, that's an excellent question. And again, one of my pop-ups on, or I might have even looked it up myself, can you use frozen veggies? And what the recipe told me to do was to get your pan heated first, up in your 400. Make sure your frozen bag of veggies don't have any ice or anything, that they're a good quality. They haven't defrosted at all to produce any kind of icing on the vegetable. And then certainly put a couple of tablespoons of oil in the pan, or at least 1 tablespoon, and then take that bag, don't rinse it and just take the whole frozen bag and put it right on the tray. And if it's a good quality frozen veggie, like a broccoli or a cauliflower or anything, those are the ones I'd probably use, it should be okay. I think probably the unsung vegetable that's you maybe want something fresh in that pan also. And the unsung vegetable is the carrot. Or perhaps even, I buy celery because I make a lot of soup. But when I come down to the end of the celery, I slice it on the diagonal, and it makes a marvelous. I don't think I've ever enjoyed celery as much as having it roasted with a good seasoning. And I don't think I've talked enough about seasoning. I put some of those veggies in there without some. I can always season afterwards, but dry basil, dry oregano. For when I do shrimp in the pot, I like to take Old Bay seasoning, or even any kind of fish, and sprinkle that on. I don't like recipes that are too spicy because Tom doesn't like too spicy. You can always put things on afterwards. But if frozen vegetables will help you, I think it's important to have at least 1 or 2 things, maybe an onion with a carrot, along with the frozen veggies to make for a good base. So does that answer the question? I think that's it.
Yes, thanks. Yeah. I also prefer fresh, of course, but
Yeah.
I always keep some in the freezer. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, you know what? For years, I buy 5-pound bags of carrots, and we go through them because a 5-pound bag of carrots, actually, if it's just keeping them in the hydrator, it lasts forever. And we can cut them up in carrot sticks, but primarily I always have carrots and celery and onions for my soups. And then
When you say your hydrator, what kind of an appliance is that? Is it an
When I
appliance?
say a hydrator, it's the refrigerator. There are drawers there for vegetables. And it's supposed to keep some of the humidity out of that area that you would be storing the veggies. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But I like to feel that I've got a surfeit of veggies here on hand. Meat and even fish. I just bought a good sized piece of salmon last week, and since I didn't want to serve it every single night for 4 nights in a row, although it was delicious, I froze it, and here it is. I froze 2 portions, and even using the salmon for one of these 1-pot dinners. And this in particular, what kind of veggie would I like to put in the pan with the salmon? Well, I guess it depends, first of all, on what I have. But if it's a veggie that takes a while to cook, like the Brussels sprouts or broccoli or cauliflower, I would get those going as my tray of veggies that I first put in, get those roasting. And then in the last 10 minutes, I would take my salmon out, season it a little bit, Old Bay, lemon pepper, little oil on top of the veggies, and roast the whole thing together. So, being out here, there's never a shortage of meat or fish that you can have, especially in the summer when sea bass or striper. We have a friend who keeps us in striper. There are so many, I can't wait to do this one pan. And, it's a little trial and error here. What would be the vegetables that I would like most to be having some nice pieces of striper fish on top of? And you can think yourself, well, gee, always onions. I like onions a lot, but what's coming out of the garden, certainly at the time, that might be good. And I think that one of the greatest aspects of this one pot is the pans are very easy. You don't have a whole lot of pans to clean up from having sauteed this or seared that. It's all in one pan. You bring it to the table. It's an easy to clean because you've had oil on the surface, but I just enjoy the meals that we do in the one pan cooking. I haven't tried that egg one yet, nor do I think I will. I just mentioned that because every single meal can be, even for a dinner party, just a huge pan of roasted veggies. And the key is to make sure if you're doing, for servings for 4 or more, I would do 2 of the pans in your oven, not just 1, 2. Because once they crowd together, they get steamed rather than roasted. And it's the roasting that brings out the sweetness and the flavor of the veggies. So it's also a better tasting vegetable when they're roasted, I think.
I agree with you.
I was going to ask as a follow-up, while I had things in the oven, has anyone made the bread that we did in the first go round?
Yes, delicious.
How?
I made it.
It's working?
I did it, and I did it with, I added plain all-purpose flour to it, more than the, I
Okay.
think your recipe was mostly whole grain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was for one recipe, it was 3 cups of the stone ground wheat.
Yeah,
Oh, it was 4 cups.
yeah. I think I put in 2 cups of white or all-purpose flour.
Okay.
Half and
And what
half.
did you think of that?
It was good. It was very good. It
Yeah.
was delicious.
Since I've been making that bread a lot, since I've been with this group, I believe I've made 50 loaves because they make a great little house gift or something to give someone. But the greatest success I had was to send the 2 small pans that I got along with a bag of the flour, the stone ground. I'm into stone ground flour, 3 cups and 1 cup white. That's my favorite combination. Mm-hmm. I put the yeast in the bag and the salt, and I sent it to my granddaughter, who is a senior in high school, not cooking much. She kept saying, Grandma, I'd love to make bread someday. So I sent that as part of her Christmas gift with the pan, the bag of the 4 cups of flour, and I said, all you do, honey, is add the 2 cups of hot water, the 2 tablespoons of syrup or honey. They loved it. They loved it. So yesterday's storm, they're in New York. She said, we wanted so bad to make that bread again. We had the yeast, and we only had white flour. I said, just make it with the white flour and put raisins in it. And they did, and they loved just making that bread. The key with the bread is that you're using quite a bit of yeast. It's 1 tablespoon or 1 package of yeast per recipe. And that makes it rise quickly, both the 2 times, and within 3 hours, you've got your bread already. They loved having a little creativity that they could bring to the bread baking. Yeah. And by the way, having that loaf of bread that can be ready from start to finish in 2.5 or 3 hours is a great accompaniment to roasted veggie dinners if you don't have a starch in the dinner. I almost was going to make it. Yeah. Sandra.
I was also going to mention, because I do a lot of roasted vegetables. It's always good to make a lot because they're very tasty, even room temperature. They don't have to be rewarmed.
Yes.
And also, one vegetable that I use a lot, and people may not, is fennel. It has an entirely different flavor when you roast it. So especially with the salmon, the fennel would give the salmon, you really go along well with the salmon. And the use of celery is very good.
Wonderful.
It's so, we don't really think of celery as something that you want to include, but it does add,
Right.
and in the winter time, I use a lot of celery in my salads. And so it gives you that crunch. And it's just something
Yes.
that I think is underused. We kind of use them in soups and that, but if you have not
yeah.
tried fennel as one of your vegetables, give that a try. I think you'll enjoy it.
And when I do, here's my remainder of my celery after having put it in salads and stuff. I take off the end when I use it in my roasted veggies, and this is where I start cutting fairly good sized pieces, certainly not chopped, a good sized piece of celery, lots of it to be thrown in a roasted. If you're gonna do a roasted veggie dinner and all you have on hand are carrots and celery and maybe an onion, it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. You would never think of serving celery for your vegetable at night, or carrots can be overdone. That's my favorite combination. And you really taste the celery when it's roasted. That's the other. Well, I'm going to check my vegetables right now, the ones that were supposed to be in there for 10 minutes. As you see, I don't use a timer. And for that reason, occasionally we have mishaps. Hold on. Okay. Wow. All right, what's just come out of the oven is, can you see? This is the Mediterranean, call it whatever you want. The mushrooms, I'm going to stir it up right in front here. It's been in the oven for about 10 minutes. It's got the Kalamata olives, the mushrooms. Let me see, carrots are fine. You know, they may be a touch crunchy, but that's great to have a little crunch in your, and now all I will do with this is let it cool. And tomorrow night, I'm gonna take 4 ounces of my bar of feta. I'm gonna sprinkle that all over the top in between the veggies and bake it for 10 minutes and serve it with a fresh bread. Will make a great dinner. And so often I never know what to do. I mean, I like vegetarian meals, not that we are not vegetarians, but it's a nice change.
Yes.
And when I buy feta, I buy that much. What is it someone said? Did someone have a question?
No, but I have one. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, you might have covered this before, but I had a phone call I had to leave for.
I do.
When you
Yeah.
you're roasting the veggies. You're roasting the veggies and you want to add your salmon or something like, or your fresh fish. Do you put the fish right on top of the veggies, or do you cook them?
Well, you know what? Susie, that's a very good question. And when you look online for when you put this on or don't put it on, the salmon or the chicken, the veggies themselves, first of all, you should have a combination of veggies to start with that would all be either fast cooking or medium cooking or long to cook. In this dish that I just made with just veggies, no cheese yet, these are veggies that cook fairly quickly. Now, the dish that I now have in the oven with the chicken breast in it are veggies that take a little bit longer. They take about 15 or 20 minutes to roast and to get browned. But I put the chicken breasts, which I didn't make them into fillets, but I cut them, you know, they're like a breast in half along the horizontal. And I had marinated it and I put it right on the top of the veggies that are cooking. Chicken breast cooks quickly. And if I think that it's not quite cooked by cutting in the middle, I'll stick it back in. You can't, when I'm gonna say you can't overcook the veggies. You can overcook veggies, particularly like Brussels sprouts. You think you pan. So 20 minutes, but that's, you know, I know that if I put a dish of chicken breasts in the oven, they would take 20 minutes to bake. I know that the veggies in the oven would take 20 minutes to bake. You have to sort of know the timing of,
Yeah.
otherwise, like the shrimp I have out here now, my bag of shrimp. If my shrimp is frozen, I can put those in. I would dust them with Old Bay and some lemon stuff. I put them right on the top of my veggies. It would be perfect because, you know, shrimp does not take long, but if it goes in frozen, it's going to take a little longer. It's going to be perfect timing. There's something called the art of knowing, you know, the timing.
Yeah.
Of it.
My mother always used to refer to it as like the yin and yang, you know, like
Yes.
when you put
Yes.
things in, like how long they're gonna take. So you're saying the frozen shrimp you put in the same time you put the veggies in?
Oh yeah,
Like they
yeah,
use-
yeah.
okay. But the
Yeah.
salmon, the piece of salmon you might put in later.
Yes, depending
Okay.
on, the other night I made the Brussels sprouts and the diced butternut squash, and I knew that those were going to take 20 minutes at a 400. So I roasted them for 10 minutes, 15, and then I put my salmon right on the top with a little bit of lemon pepper on it. Just
Okay.
because I don't want to dirty another pot or pan. It's there. It's one pot cooking. You know, another dish that you can make is, let's say, fajitas. You take your chicken, you might want to dice it up, toss it with a rub of fajita rub, which you can make with cumin and chili powder. Toss that with green and red pepper and onion. There's your one pan dish. And serve it in a fajita shell.
What spice do you use on a shrimp
Well,
when you're doing
you know,
shrimp?
when I'm doing shrimp with the vegetables, I try to think that the vegetables need the same kind of seasoning as the shrimp would. And I love shrimp and vegetables. So I take and sprinkle my shrimp before I even put it in the oven with some Old Bay. It's a very nice fish thing. And maybe on the vegetables, I would put some sprinkling of basil and olive oil. I use olive oil for the base of just about everything except the shrimp and some other Asian foods. I might want to use sesame oil with the veggies that are in the pan. Like broccoli, I would do sesame oil, maybe a little grated fresh ginger, salt and pepper. Get that broccoli and onions and carrots, 10 minutes so that they're crunchy, and then put the shrimp on top of that and kind of toss it as an Asian dish. Or not an Asian, I'm sorry. I mixed my.
So sesame oil, and then the shrimp. You wouldn't put Old Bay on that recipe. You just do the sesame oil.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, right. I'm looking here at some of the oils and things that I use, the fish oil, the sesame oil. I even have a balsamic glaze that someone gave me as a gift. If I'm going to do pork, let's say a pork tenderloin with veggies, I might want to take, or even on a platter of fresh veggies, do a little balsamic glaze or a touch of balsamic vinegar. You know, you can't ruin. You do it to taste, and you can't ruin any of these things. Whatever you would sprinkle on a vegetable that you were cooking, I mean, even tonight's chicken shawarma. Chicken shawarma has cinnamon in the marinade. It's not something you would often do, and you certainly wouldn't sprinkle it on veggies, but it's very, very slight hint of it. So once you start making full pan dishes, you do want to have some kind of herbs and maybe fresh ginger and the salt and pepper, lemon juice, the use of lemon juice, anything like that, salt and pepper. It just makes, so I've invested in 2 larger new pans. Now, you know what? My old pans are so nicely worn out. I think that they actually brown the vegetables better than this new pan does, but that's all right. We'll get this pan to work. I'm gonna go take a look now at my chicken dish, my chicken shawarma. Hold on, whoops.
Just so you know, I'm about to take off, but Judy's here, okay?
Okay,
Okay, thank you so much. This has been fabulous.
here is, by the way, can you see
Ah.
this?
Lovely.
Chicken
Lovely.
shawarma.
Looks delicious.
Lots of, yes, and I'll check now. I think that was 20 minutes. And by the way, those veggies that I just did for tomorrow night, I'll just throw them in a bowl. I also want to show you here how the Brussels sprouts, which were facing down, they get nice and brown. I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. Come on. All right. Here's the, see the brown Brussels sprout?
Right.
You
Beautiful.
see that? And this is, yeah. The chicken, I cut into it, not quite as white as I'd like it to be, but it's not dark. It actually is going to finish cooking. I'm going to put the oven off. I'm going to leave it for a few minutes. It's pretty much done. Oh, this is done with all the veggies. Chicken shawarma at the ready for tonight, and then some great leftovers. And that's doing everything in one pot. And the key is vegetables. I mean, that's the thing that I like the most about this dish too, is you can combine them. You don't have to have more than one pot for making a vegetable.
And it's healthy.
And you don't-
It's healthy eating.
Yes,
Yeah, very
Very.
healthy eating. Yes, yeah. I'm gonna try
and
it.
extreme,
It's lovely.
and it's very, very tasty. Just dependent, look in your spice closet and see, oh, I think I'm gonna try a little of this. Smoked paprika has a
Mhm.
wonderful, I happen to love it, smoked paprika, and I would do it on any one of these dishes. But start out light, put a little bit on some. The other thing you can do is to put 2 or 3 different proteins in one, although I've seen pictures of it. I kind of like using one meat, whether it's sausage or whatever. If you're going to be doing it with chickpeas, I would get the chickpeas drained off, put a little bit of olive oil in your pan with your oven at 425. They will become so much tastier. And it's such an inexpensive meal for 2 or 3, is to have the vegetables with chickpeas and maybe some brown rice on the side.
Oh, boy. Wow. Sounds great.
Yeah, rice is always great with a veggie meat combination. It's so.
Thank
Anyway, you want to come on over for dinner? We've got plenty here.
Thank you, Pat. This was great, full of new ideas. I love it. Last night, Bob and I had scallops. Nothing should have been easier. It was 4 pans. I had a vegetable in a pan. I had rice in a pan. I had the scallops in a pan, and I made a new sauce that was in another pan. So I've learned a lot in one day.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and you know what? If you do your rice or your farro or your quinoa, you can do it in a bowl in the micro. You won't have any pan on that stove,
Yeah. Good.
and it
That's
works.
What's that?
And it works.
What's that expression they say? Kiss. Keep it simple,
Yeah.
silly.
Oh, absolutely, Sylvie. It's what is great about this. Now, this whole thing I made with the shawarma, I could leave it here and warm it up briefly with company coming. That's the other thing, is when I make roasted veggies for a dinner for a large group, I do that all before people get there. Slice and dice, roast the veggies. It happens to always be a favorite. Then, I could do the meat as part of it, or I could do it, something on the grill. But doing the roasted veggies, which can include your starch, I've been doing some regular russet potatoes in. If you can do sweet potatoes, they cook more quickly, but the russets work beautifully in a 1-pan dinner. with carrots and things that take a while, maybe with even the cauliflower. But see, I would do that first. I would get those those potatoes going. First of all, slice them thin so that you get a nice, like a fried type of potato. And you don't need much oil. This is the other thing. Every dish that I make, I don't use a quarter of a cup of oil. I use about a tablespoon of it. And it's still very rich tasting.
Wow.
So
Thank
the best part is the cleanup. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
to the library.
Yeah.
Enjoy
no,
your
for
dinner.
hosting this. You're welcome.
Yeah, it sounds
I shall.
wonderful.
Bon appetit.
Thank you so much. This is great.
This was
Good to
great.
see you all.
Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye,
Nice to
everyone.
see
Thanks,
you.
Pat.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Very good, Pat.
Oh, thank you. We had a little trouble getting our video thing going, but thanks to Susanna. Oh my God, we were just in time, just in the nick of time
That's
to
good.
get the library people doing this. But you know,
Okay.
it's a great service, I think, for all of us to have this. Thank you, Kristen, Susanna, Gloria, and the senior program. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, I'm gonna my dish in, stay warm. so
Thanks,
I can have a
Thanks,
You're
Pat. It
welcome.
was wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. You're welcome.
Look at that beautiful